Imagine that one day you take your car, you go for a drive, and everything feels normal. It's a beautiful day until suddenly you see a tree blocking the road. And I'm sorry, but I have some bad news for you, because if you see that tree, your day is about to get way worse. You're about to become a resident of one of the scariest and strangest places imaginable, a town the fandom has affectionately named Fromville. And nothing, absolutely nothing makes sense here, because the moment you enter, the rules of reality starts to fall apart. Roads lead in but never out. You will be just driving in circles. People arrive from completely different places, different times, and somehow they end up stuck in the same exact location. There is a motel pool, but no motel. Electricity works, but no one knows how, and every single answer only leads to more questions. Cherry on top, every night some monsters will come out and will eat you if you're not careful enough. So, what is this place really? Is it a physical location? Is it a pocket universe?
And is that what this place is? Another dimension?
Oh, no. This is a pocket universe.
Is it a system of some sort? Is it a trap? Or something far more disturbing? Something that's been here long before anyone ever saw that tree? I've been trying to answer that question for a very long time, and I think I finally figured it out, thanks to one very specific moment at the end of Season 3. Just remember what Julie actually says to Jim.
No, listen to me. I need to change the story, Dad. Please, change the story, Dad.
I need to change the story. The story, not past, not fate, not time, not the usual words and concepts we are used to hear in TV shows and movies about time travel. She needs to change the story, which means we have a clear 100% answer to one of our main questions. What is Fromville? Fromville and its surroundings is actually a story that came to life. And if you look back at all 3 seasons, we have a lot of hints.
If I remember, it was chapter 3.
I think it's probably a quest, like a hero's quest. Like Norman had to go onto the Lake of Tears. We probably have to save somebody if we want to go home. No, not a puzzle. A story. They all fit together and tell a story. And once we figure out the story, we'll know what to do next.
It'll be like telling a story.
You want me to tell you a story?
It's okay. I can tell my own stories now.
All I keep thinking about is that this sounds like those stories that you always tell us. If I was a character in one of those stories, what would I do?
Just think about how this world came to life. We have this information also. Let's remember the words of the boy in white.
So the answers to the end are at the beginning. That it started with the children. What the others did to them. People they loved, people they trusted. He said the children were born in the dark and then they were murdered in the dark. But someone who loved them told them a story. The story gave them hope. And when the children laid on the stones, they poured their hope into the roots that made the symbol, and those roots became the tree.
Faraway tree.
Well, every superhero has an origin story, so does Fromville. And how did it all start? We know that Ankui children were supposed to be sacrificed for some mystical evil power, but somebody who loved them told them a story. Now that story gave them hope. Okay, so let's say it created hope. So hope was used as a source of energy during the sacrifice. So during the sacrifice, they used hope to basically create. So hope was used here as an energy. Okay, so this is an energy here. And through this hope, they were able to create the roots of a tree, of teleport tree. Previously, I assumed that the world of From existed before the sacrifice and merely isolated itself from our world. But it makes much more sense that the sacrifice, an act traditionally imbued with powerful magical potential, is what actually activated the story and materialized it into this world. Look, any author in a way creates a new world when they start to write a book, a script, or something else. We can read this story and be completely hypnotized by it. Sometimes this story can even pull us in, like From did with Fromville. Now let's some powerful mysticism and magic to that formula, and imagine that this world actually came to life. And since the world is born from the imagination of children, it doesn't have to work according to our physics laws, it has to work according to their imagination. This will explain, for example, why the wires, electricity wires, don't go anywhere, and why the motel doesn't have a motel. So the origin of Fromville actually explains a lot of its mysteries. But realizing that Fromville is actually a story that came to life kinda opens us to a lot of new questions. Where is this story taking place? Who wrote it, or who is still writing it? When will this story end? Any story needs a setting, a place where events unfold, and we can understand Fromville's setting way better thanks to Victor's drawings. According to the boy in white, it all started with the children. They were sacrificed to some kind of evil force in exchange for immortality. But before they died, someone who loved them told them a story that gave them hope. During the sacrifice itself, the kids poured that hope into the roots of the teleport tree. Any sacrifice is always a powerful magical act in any lore, and the released energy of hope created this place. It's also interesting that this place wasn't just born from the energy of hope, it's also powered by it, at least according to Abby.
It wants you to fight, it wants you to have hope that you could actually win.
Why?
Because hope is what makes you willing to suffer. It's not your fear that feeds the forest boy. It's hope.
So the main thing that keeps this place going and pays the bill is actually hope. But if what's needed is just hope, why is this place not some kumbaya resort where, some desperate people come and get a lot of hope that every problem will be resolved? How come it's a shithole where you can die every day? You see, the reason this place demands hope is energy is that Ankui children were filled with hope during sacrifice, and that's what created the tree and the forest around it. Yet they definitely also felt pain and despair when they died. So it makes sense that this place will demand those emotions too to sustain itself. I have a question for you. Let's say right now you're in the United States or Canada or whatever country you're watching this video from, and if you're gonna go in a straight line towards whatever goal, and you're gonna take car, boat, plane, whatever, but always in the straight line, eventually you're gonna end up at the same point. You're gonna make a full circle, because I'm sorry, flat earthers, but our Earth, our planet's a circle. This is a round planet. Now we know that Fromville is some sort of a spiritual world. There is a place where we have Abby, Katri, Tom the bartender. Even after their death, they're coming to see our heroes. This is where they exist. We have the laws of thermodynamics told to us by Jade, explaining that, energy is never disappearing, it's always being preserved, it just transferred to a different state. So maybe the human soul is also being transferred from one state to another. So we have a spiritual world. Now let's say our spiritual world, probably not physical one, right? You probably cannot really touch it the same way you can touch this, this pen or this microphone. This is not something that is in 3D dimensions as we used to, but it's probably also a circle. Let's pretend that it's like this. So at some point Ankui children are being sacrificed. They are here, they're in this area. This is the spirit world. Inside here are the spirits, and Ankui children, they are in the living world. They are somewhere here in this area, okay? So they are dying and their spirits are screaming, Ankui, Ankui, remember me, you motherfucker, or I will curse you to the end of the world. So their spirits is basically transferring like here to this place. This is the transformation that is going on. But through the magical process of sacrifice, which, as we spoke about in lore, it's always an event imbued with magic and it's powerful and usually has a lot of effect, suddenly something happens. They have to stay, they have a grasp on this place. So they create a different, like a layer here. It's a small one, but it's a combination between the metaphysical and the mystical. So try to imagine, let's say that our planet is basically 10,000 times smaller than it is, like it's the size of a building. So how long it will take you to make a full circle? Don't try to think about this from the perspective of a physicist, just imagine this with the mystical, rules and magical powers for this place. So it's something small, so when you go in the circle, wherever you go in, whether you drive or you go to the forest, you will eventually end up at the same place. Now, because it's between the spiritual world and the real world, you don't really need to die in order to get there, you just need to be very suitable for this place. And we're gonna talk about this in a couple of seconds, but this will also explain how all of our heroes can enter this place from a very different locations, but almost always get up in the same place. They always end up in the same location. So I know it takes a lot of imagination to picture this, but if you are with me, you're probably thinking, hey man, you are onto something. Hopefully. Now that we understand what this place is and what fits it, we have to ask why our heroes are drawn into this place. Why them and not somebody else? Various media containers like books, movies, TV shows, video games, manga, anime, whatever you can think of, they all have different aspects to storytelling, so you can differentiate between them. But also there are universal rules to telling a story, that no matter what media you use, you will have to follow those rules. For example, what does every story has to have? Characters, of course. Characters filled with hope, new batteries for this place. A priest arrives in town and takes on the role of the spiritual leader, just like many before him. They even have all the proper attributes ready for him. He is full of hope because he believes he has heard the voice of God for the first time. A sheriff arrives with his wife and son and becomes the city's protector. He has just retired and received a boat as a present, the boat he always wanted. Now he's full of hope for his new life with his family. Does the town need a doctor? Of course it does. So meet Christy, a young medic on her way to meet her fiancé, full of hope before their wedding. Sarah, Kenny, the Matthews family, all of them were full of hope before falling into Fromville. But not just any hope, hope that goes hand in hand with misery. Christy is suffering since her fiancé is an addict. Katri is mourning the loss of a child. Matthews, of course, for the same reason. And Kenny is seeing how his father loses his mind. This is hope that comes from misery. And you need to amplify the misery to amplify the hope. What if Fromville is simply, as we said, casting people for the roles it needs? And only once a person ends up here, they take on that role, becoming a reincarnation. Remember what Fake Thomas said to Jim.
You leave my children alone.
But they're not your children anymore.
Starting from what moment exactly? From the moment they arrived in Fromville, or from the moment Tabitha took on the role of mother of the Nkui children? Or maybe there was a different trigger to that. Now, a great way to explain what is a trigger and how it actually works in Fromville is actually video games. Okay, I think The Walking Dead 2 is a good example. You see, when you watch a movie or you read a book, the story will progress always with the same speed. The speed of your reading or the speed with which you're watching said movie or a TV show. With video games, it's a little bit different. You see, right now, our main hero is just standing in the toilet. She needs to check up every booth to see if there is a zombie inside. Now, unless I do this, I myself do this, the story will not progress forward at all. I can leave this remote here and go for a walk and come back in a week and she'll still be standing here waiting for me to push her towards those booths to change whether there is a zombie inside. Now, if I'm gonna do this, suddenly the story will move forward. Something actually will happen. Now think about Fromville. What happens there is that basically Victor is wandering around for 40 years and nothing happens. But suddenly some new things are happening. The two cars arrive. There is suddenly some cicadas and there is a winter and there is no food. And suddenly Nkui children start to appear to Tabitha, even though in season 1 they're basically absent. So what happened? What was the trigger? What made the boy in white change his appearance and start to look as a grown-up? Because the story is progressing forward. The more triggers our heroes actually hit, the more the story moves forward. And unless they are being hit, said triggers, nothing's gonna happen. You know, all of those NPCs, non-playable characters, are just gonna walk around in Fromville and wait until the main heroes, the main characters that Fromville is trying to cast are actually gonna arrive to town and start new triggers. Even though From and Fromville is obviously not a video game and not a simulation, its rules are kinda similar to a video game. You have to have some kind of a trigger that starts the game, that moves the plot forward. In the video game, this is your choices, or you're starting the game. In Fromville, let's assume most likely it's probably the two cars arriving. This is how the story began in the caves, with the boats arriving to the new place, and this is how it probably began for Victor's timeline in the 70s, and this is how it began for our heroes when we watched this in Season 1, Episode 1. So this is probably the trigger that starts the story, and this is why for 40 years while Victor was alone in this place, there was never winter, because nobody pushed the button, nobody started the game, the process, whatever you want to call it.
They're losing their leaves. The trees.
That happens every year.
Oh, not here. Oh, it's always the same here. You look different now.
So do you.
All those years you look the same. Why are you changing now?
Everything's changing now.
All I'm saying is that any story has a beginning, an end, and an important plot milestones. Victor's story ended up with the deaths of Miranda and Christopher. It was a failure. The boy in white said that he tried to help, but it didn't work.
Why won't you help us?
Because I tried.
Now what's interesting in this story, there are thresholds, as Ethan called them.
You're at a threshold. It's always scary, but the hero has to be brave.
Moments when our heroes playing the same story, playing the same role, will have an option, a choice, a freedom to do something else. If it's all a story that repeats itself over and over again, the same triggers, the same choices, so it kind of makes sense why and how Sarah's voices knew that Nathan would be killed, would die if she didn't kill the boy. It's because they've seen this threshold many times with characters like Sarah and Nathan, and they know if you don't kill the boy that came in the car, Sarah's character's brother has to die. But even when the story restarts, it still needs to repeat specific beats, triggers that launch the next branch of events. Like Tabitha takes on the role of the mother to the children of Ankui, Julie becomes a story walker, the sacrifice of a child, the main savior losing his moral compass. There are many thresholds, as Ethan called them, where a character needs to make a choice that will trigger the next line of events. So the Ankui's sacrifice, fueled by hope and entwined with a dark power that demanded said sacrifice, is what gave life to this story, the one that was told to them just before they died. And now we know that this story have to repeat itself over and over again. So if the story repeats itself, this repetition needs to have a purpose. Which purpose can we think? Other than, escaping from this place. So the goal of the story repeating itself is to break the loop, to release the Ankui children's spirits. Let them rest, finally.
I think it's probably a quest, like a hero's quest. Like Norman had to go onto the Lake of Tears. We probably have to save somebody if we want to go home.
So what it means is that the characters need to replay this story again and again, but at thresholds they need to make correct choices that will lead this story to a different conclusion that eventually was brought to them. So this is where we're gonna get our happy end, if our heroes will make the correct choices. Now, if you noticed in the beginning of this video, I asked you who wrote or still writing this story, because there are so many examples that there is someone still writing it right now. And the great example for it is book 74 that Father Khatri mentions in episode 6, season 1.
What if we are living the book that has yet to be written? What if this is book 74?
The numbers 4 and 7 pop up quite often in this series. On the radio on season 2, when some monster crawls out of the ground, Grandma Tilly has 4 kids and 7 grandkids. Even the hospital room where Tabitha stayed is number 2225. If you add the first 2 and the last 2 digits, you get 4 and 7. Even in the lighthouse, when Tabitha climbs up, she sees 3 cards, 8, 4 and of course 7. Could it be that Khatri's belief that he is in book 74 actually started to influence this place place, and he is the one who's also writing the story, him and everybody else who is in this place?
But how can the story be finished if all the players remain on stage?
You remember what Sarah told Kenny?
What if the people who die here, what if their fears become part of the forest? What if that really is Nathan's nightmare out there?
It really does feel like the story adapts to its characters. The theory that fears come to life after death is plausible, but it only has one direct piece of evidence right now, which isn't much. But it kinda makes sense if your goal is to extract as much hope and fear and pain from the people batteries that you bring to this place. It kinda makes sense to tailor this place, this experience, to extract as much fear and as much hope from them. Logical, right?
Nathan had a theory about this place. If we tried to leave, if we pushed too hard, then something would push back.
Nathan was right about this place.
This place is not only forcing conditions on the people, it also reacts to their actions. The story has to develop correctly, which is why in a way Sarah's brother was right. If you resist this place too much, it will push you back onto the necessary story path. The attempt to build a radio tower or step out of the scene triggered the storm at the end of season 1. The place got angry because the characters tried to rewrite it. This is where it's worth mentioning the radio that keeps playing just the right songs to nudge our heroes along the path, to send Boyd on his journey with Sarah so he can get the worms, or to mock Kenny after his mother's death, extracting even more energy from his suffering, or on the other hand, to remind Tabitha and Jim that they once loved each other. Even the teleport trees, if we look at them through a storytelling lens, are like editing cuts. When you need to move a character from point A to point B, but showing or describing all of that is pointless, you just cut. And if Julia or Tabitha climb into the tree, they appear exactly where the story needs them. But if it's Dale, the tree will throw him somewhere NPCs are needed, like, the bottom of a pool. All those are tools used by authors and are used by Fromville, by this place, to keep the status quo, to maintain the story in its natural loop. Now the final question for me today is, if the story repeats itself, isn't it supposed to also restart itself? So how come we have both Victor and Ethan, who are supposedly the child of the mother figure, still in the same story, together working for the sake of our heroes? So what if actually our story is not running in circles, but in a different shape? In Alan Wake 2, for example, the story goes in a spiral. In Dark, it follows a sort of flower pattern. So what if the story of From doesn't run in circle, but in a kind of infinity symbol? It does sound a little bit forced, right? I mean, Igor, you promised us you're not gonna pull anything out of your ass. So where are you pulling this from? From the caves, where most likely the original story that came to life after the sacrifice of Ankui children is immortalized on the wall. There's also the infinity symbol crossed in the middle, hinting that this loop can be broken. The souls of Ankui children telling us their story, insisting they must not be forgotten. They're trying to save the very childlike innocence that manifested in the form of the boy in white. Their sacrifice gave this story flesh, embedding it into the space between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits. Now, especially sensitive souls, and sometimes those who have been reborn from previous turns of the story, are inevitably drawn to this place. They become part of the plot, which either repeats again and again, or thanks to new heroes taking in old roles, the vicious loop will finally be broken and the survivors will be able to go home.
We can't finish the quest unless we figure out the story.
Thank you so much for watching this video. You're more than welcome to check my merch, like, subscribes, and do the rest of it. And of course, I want to thank everybody who supports me on Patreon and here on YouTube. Your financial support and your help makes this channel possible. I'm gonna see you on the next one. Meanwhile, bye!